This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. First off, I just want to apologize to everybody for us missing a show last week. We are back this week. Just to let everybody know, I had a family event that took place out of state, and I had a little bit of issue with the internet, so we couldn't record. That's on me. I apologize for all of that, but we are back this week, and we had another fantastic week of wrestling in our builds to WrestleMania. On this week's show, we're going to talk about this WWE superstar calling it quits, as well as who WWE has their eye on from AEW, and it's not MJF. We're going to tell you about all of that. Of course, we're going to take a look at AEW, and we're going to take a deep dive into WWE. Doing it with me, as always, he's my tag team partner. He's the one. He's the only. He is the mouth of the South, Eastern Macomb. He is the DocJock Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Middle Eastern madman reporting for duty.
I like that a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, what an interesting week of wrestling, because we are literally 7 days away from WrestleMania. I can't wait. 6, including night one. It's going to be fabulous. Stupendous is the word they're using. I'm looking forward to breaking it all down. I'm excited. Wrestling has been interesting, too, outside of the ring. Unfortunately, Scott Hall passed away. Big deal there. And it just stunk because of the fact that you heard what was going on. You had a little bit of hope, but unfortunately, whenever you go under the knife, there's always the risk of disaster. But, hey, he didn't suffer. And everybody has been showing the love to Scott Hall. And then you have news later in this episode about a 14-time world champion who has officially called it quits. And I can't wait to break that down with you later in the show. But this week was crazy because Raw was interesting, but I don't think it's been good enough to carry everything going on. I mean, I like teases and all, but I was wondering your reaction. When Stone Cold's music hit, did your pants get a little tighter? And then when Kevin Owens came out, were you just devastatingly sad when it was the tease of all teases on Monday Night Raw?
I mean, I was pumped. There's something about that music that stirs up all these memories of when you were a kid and watching wrestling. And for the longest time, Stone Cold was the GOAT of WWE. He was the guy. And like I said, there's something about that music, something about that glass shattering that just gets you excited. And all of a sudden, Kevin Owens comes out. And Kevin Owens, it was a great parody. It was a fantastic parody. They had, the little skin head on him, and they had it, kind of glued down, but it was, hastily done. And he had the knee braces on, and, one knee brace was falling off. He was wearing jorts, and I thought it was fantastic. I thought what they did for the Kevin Owens Stone Cold build, I thought it was great. I thought Kevin Owens coming out and again just poking and prodding and just kind of messing with you and trying to drive the point home to get under Stone Cold's skin, I thought was great. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting when he's in the middle of cutting his promo and then all of a sudden the music hits again and the crowd just goes ballistic. It shows you what that music does, and it shows you who Stone Cold is, especially in the minds and in the hearts of the fans. It's absolutely fantastic. And then all of a sudden Kevin Owens, who's dressed up like Stone Cold, turns around and is like, fooled you again. I thought it was a great play. I thought it was awesome. I think it tells you how invested everybody is in seeing Stone Cold come back, which has me wondering, because early on, I thought for sure we were getting a match. I was the one guy in our group message who was like, we are definitely getting a match. Kenny said absolutely not, and you kind of seemed to straddle the fence a little bit. I'm wondering if you still think that this will be a non-match, or are we going to actually get something in the ring that won't just consist of drinking beers and a couple of stunners? Because my hope is that we get a match. But as we kind of build towards this, there is nothing that has been laid down that has been concrete. There is nothing that has been said, hey, on night 2 or on night 1, and this sounds like this specific segment is going to take place on night 1. So there's been nothing that's been laid out that says we are absolutely getting a match. And as this kind of goes on, my thought process is we are not getting a match. And that disappoints me. That makes me really upset because all I want to see is Stone Cold one more time. Whether he wins or whether he loses, I want to relive Stone Cold one more time. And I don't know, just as this plays out and as we're a week away from what is deemed the most stupendous WrestleMania of all time, WrestleMania 38, I don't think we get that match. And I was really hoping we got that match. What are your thoughts on us getting a match?
Okay. It's time to open up our creative minds, okay? Because a lot of us are thinking that Seth Rollins is going to fight Cody Rhodes, okay?
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Yes, and the potential opportunities that could be abound. But I think this is the time for the Master Swerve. And I thought about it as I was drinking my coffee, as you were like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, I need to percolate a little bit more on my thoughts. And here's what I came up with. Everything's going great. Boom, boom. Stone Cold comes out and he's getting taunted. He's getting, ridiculed by Kevin Owens. He's having his manhood tested. And then boom, all of a sudden the guy to his right is Cody Rhodes. And Cody Rhodes comes in to destroy Kevin Owens. And you have this little bit of a run now where Stone Cold Steve Austin is the mentor or the badass voice that Cody needed to get over the top. You need Stone Cold. You need that presence. Even if it's just for 6 months, a year, let him get his run in, but as the guy in the background for Cody Rhodes. And this would be fantastic because you have that bridge of old WCW, that tutelage where Cody knows he's got the in-ring work, but he doesn't have that edge to get over. Couldn't you imagine the crowd going apeshit when Stone Cold is just simply standing there ordering Kevin Owens to get his ass beat, and then the stunner is finally delivered by Stone Cold Steve Austin? My God, Adam, you got to stop with the geriatric abuse. The man has not wrestled in 19 years. What do you want him to do? It's going to be punch, chop, and stunner. Come on.
Have you seen pictures of what Stone Cold looks like?
Yeah, okay, but there's difference between being in shape and then being in wrestling shape to have a match at WrestleMania. Come on. This is the show of the immortals, and so you need to have moments. And so I think that there should be a lot of physicality, but not done by Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think, of course, WWE is not going to please me, but I think that you can't have a match. It's just not in the cards. I don't think it would be successful.
See, I think I've seen pictures of Stone Cold, and he looks like he is in arguably the best shape of his life, like better than when he was actually wrestling. He looks like he is in fantastic shape. This is my thought process, right? And you and I both know this. With a match, you basically have two guys going in there, and they are creating together. And sometimes one guy has to carry another guy. Sometimes one guy has to lean on another guy. I was listening to the Chris Jericho podcast, and he had William Regal on, and William Regal was talking about how he basically blew his knee out. And if you go back and you watch his match with Bryan Danielson carried him the entire match. There were moves that were done where Bryan never bent his knee, but it looked like he was wrenching on his knee. And basically, he just leaned on Bryan the entire time. At this point in his career, Kevin Owens can carry Stone Cold if Stone Cold's not in good enough shape. I think Stone Cold's been working towards it. I think Stone Cold keeps in great shape, and I think Stone Cold does a really good job of keeping up his cardio, and that's really what it comes down to. It's the cardio, and can your joints handle it? And I think Stone Cold having 19 years off, Stone Cold keeping in good physical shape, keeping up with his cardio, I think Stone Cold could do this. I mean, you see a guy like Bill Goldberg, who we both agree is not great in the ring. Bill Goldberg was never great in the ring. Stone Cold Steve Austin never had this crazy move set, but he could give you the finger, he could give you the chops, he could give you the run and tackle and then jump on top of you and give you a couple right hands. Like, he can give you the classics, and he can save it all up for one big spot. One big spot. That's all you need. I think you can still get a match from this guy, and I think it could possibly happen. But as we build, I just don't think it is happening, and that severely disappoints me. I think that's going to disappoint a lot of fans. Something else that's been a little bit disappointing, and in our group chat, I put it out there, because I thought for sure we were getting whoever Seth Rollins' challenger was. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it might have been Cody Rhodes. I thought we were going to get our first Cody Rhodes sighting. The fans are chanting and the fans are screaming his name, and then we didn't get anything. What do you think about this Seth Rollins build? And at this point, like you said, we're a week out. Seth Rollins doesn't technically have a match. We don't know who he's facing. We know he's on the card, but we don't know who he's facing, and that's because we're smarks. We're smart marks. What do you think about this? Because at some point, I want to be able to latch onto something. I want to be able to know what's going on, and I want to be a part of this. And at this point, I don't feel like we're getting anything. Does this play out where Seth Rollins shows up at WrestleMania and that's where we get his challenger? Or do you think we get it this week on Monday Night Raw?
It's so tough because, man, you just need somebody to be at the level of Seth Rollins. I don't know how it's going to play out. I have no idea what's optimal. I don't know if it's Cody Rhodes, somebody else. I know you've potentially thought of other people as well. I don't know. Does Seth need to have a 5-star match with somebody who's right there in the mid-card? I don't know. Is it somebody new that has not even been thought about? Is it somebody from NXT? It's just so many things that you can do, and I know it's intriguing, but really, I think that the best option is to keep playing out, Seth being disappointed and trying to figure stuff out, and then have the payoff be at WrestleMania.
So, I like that, right? But at the same point, it doesn't give me anything that gets me excited for that match at WrestleMania. I don't know who he's going to be taking on. I don't know what he's going to be doing. A couple of the people who could possibly challenge him, and I want to know who you think would be his best challenge, who would be the most ultimate challenger. And I'll give you a couple of scenarios. Like you said, Cody Rhodes shows up either on Monday or Cody Rhodes shows up at WrestleMania, and that's who Seth Rollins takes on. And by all reports, a little bit of Cody news, by all reports, when Cody Rhodes does show up in WWE, Cody Rhodes will have all of the same gimmick, the same gear, the same ring entrance, the same colors, the same lights, the same pyro. All of it's going to say the same. What he had in AEW is supposed to carry over to WWE, which I think is great. I think that's really, really cool that they'll do that for him, and they're not going to make him be Stardust again. Or could it possibly be The Undertaker? Undertaker going into the Hall of Fame. Undertaker has basically been out in front of this saying, I'm not wrestling anymore. Undertaker, during his induction on Friday night into the Hall of Fame, says, maybe I've got one more in me. And maybe he challenges Seth Rollins. And maybe that's his farewell match, his final farewell match. I don't know, we've had like 3 or 4 farewell matches for Undertaker, but maybe that's the last one. Or somebody else who's been getting a heavy push, and this is a younger talent. This is a guy who looks the part. He seems to talk the part. I don't necessarily believe it all the time, but he is a guy who has it in his lineage. Braun Breaker. What if Braun Breaker is Seth Rollins' challenge at WrestleMania? Which one of those scenarios do you like, or do you possibly see somebody else who could challenge him?
Oh, I love the Undertaker scenario. That's very unique. I think the crowd would pop. I think that allows Cody Rhodes to do something else. That's a great scenario, but Cody Rhodes would be fantastic because that match has the potential to steal the show. I mean, Cody Rhodes in this version against Seth Rollins could be technical, could be spot fest, could be a lot of back and forth, and you definitely could see, for part of me though, really wants an alignment. I would love to see Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins align with one more person. That would be amazing. If you could have something of an alliance moving forward of something really awesome. I mean, literally, the dream one would be Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Seth Rollins. I mean, come on now. That would be amazing to go in the future, to have this kind of group that takes care of each other and handles business. I don't know. It could happen so many different ways. I just can't wait to see it. But if The Undertaker comes out, that'd be awesome. I'd mark out.
My only problem with Randy Orton being in that group, because I do like Cody Rhodes and I do like Seth Rollins together, I feel like Randy Orton would overshadow that group. It feels like to me, every group that Randy Orton's in, he tends to be the guy who kind of has a bigger shadow than everybody else, and everybody else has to kind of try to get out of that shadow. I think his role with Matt Riddle right now, Matt Riddle does a really good job of being that comedic humor where it kind of separates him from Randy and it allows him to kind of have his space. Also, there is this almost mentor-like relationship between Matt Riddle and Randy Orton. So that works. It plays into it. It kind of leans into it a little bit, and I like that. I feel like if you put you put Randy Orton in there with Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, who I feel like Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins are on the same level. These are both main event high caliber guys. I just feel like if you add Randy Orton to that mix, he's maybe a level or two above them. Now, not maybe so much his work rate in the ring, but just kind of his aura, his presence, what he brings might just kind of overshadow those guys a little bit. But I do like where you're headed with an alliance. Something that I don't really like, we talked about this a little bit pre-show. I didn't like SmackDown this week. I thought SmackDown was absolute trash. I thought it was a waste of 2 hours. To me, it feels like on SmackDown they tried to basically push everything that they've got building towards WrestleMania, and they have to get it all in. And it really feels like the only thing that gets a little bit of time to breathe. And even at this point, what I've seen last week with the Roman Reigns or what I've seen this week with the Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar angle, it felt forced. It didn't feel like it was necessary. And honestly, it feels like the only thing that SmackDown has going for it is the Roman Reigns and the Brock Lesnar angle. And again, this week it didn't feel necessary for me. It just felt, ugh. And I don't know. Where do you sit with what we're getting on SmackDown? I mean, Ronda came out and cut an awful promo, and we didn't need that. You know, she's dealing with a bit of an injury herself, where she's basically the connecting tissue inside of her mouth that connects her lip to her gum is ripped, and that was from the beatdown that she suffered at Charlotte's hands a week ago. So this is one of those things where I just don't know where we're going with this, and I just don't know why SmackDown seems to kind of fall short sometimes. It's weird. We can never have Raw and SmackDown putting together really great shows or even really good shows in the same weeks. It seems like they go on stretches where Raw will carry it for a couple weeks at a time, and then SmackDown will carry it for a couple weeks at a time. What did you think of SmackDown, and is the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar the only thing really going for SmackDown?
Yeah, I mean, I like Rick Boogs. He brings an energy that's really cool. It's the law of diminishing return. We do get that a lot. Shinsuke Nakamura, I thought getting the W was great. I think I'm really struggling to find an avenue to like Ridge Holland. I don't like the character. He's not over, and he's getting prime opportunities. He did fall to Xavier Woods. Obviously you and I are not fans of Butch. It's just it's something that you have going on there, and I understand. But I thought that, for looking at it, seeing the Intercontinental Champion, something new go on, but I thought that, again, something that you and I don't like is roll-up wins, and Ricochet takes a loss to Angel in a situation that will now set up a future title shot for the up-and-comer. Didn't need that, but hey, what are you going to do? I agree with you. I just think that SmackDown could have been a lot more, but, it's just one of those things where Humberto, Angel, do we really need that? Are you invested in them? Not really. No, I don't need that at all. And then I'm sure you weren't thrilled with the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions matchup with Queen Zelina Vega, Sasha Banks, Rhea Ripley, and Shayna Baszler. I don't need that.
Let's talk about that, because this was presented as a fatal four-way with basically half of the contenders from this tag match. At one point, we have all 8 women in the ring brawling. We go to a commercial break. We come back, and all the women that were in this ring brawling, the half that weren't competing, are now sent to the back. It just doesn't make sense to me sometimes. Like, what are we doing? It doesn't help get the story over. It doesn't make you necessarily want to see this. Like, do you want to see any of these women really contend for the women's tag team? I mean, it's bad enough WWE hasn't really done a good job building or promoting that tag team, and then you get matches like this where it's just kind of chaos, and there's nothing really good. I don't know. I just felt incredibly frustrated by what I've seen on SmackDown.
Yeah, Sasha Banks gets the W, and, it's just unfortunate. You're absolutely right. The best way to put it, it was a C- show. There wasn't enough to handle business, and basically you got two main events going on instead of a full great SmackDown show. And that's what it kind of felt like. 2 hours that could have been put on WWE main event SmackDown always has the feel that we like of a show that has the it factor, but right now it's not there, and it's unfortunate because you're right, because a lot of talent is on Raw. There's a lot of good talent on Monday Night Raw, and it's a 2-hour show. Luckily, SmackDown was 2 hours, because if this was a show that you wanted to sit and enjoy, you probably are going to be disappointed.
I do have a question for you that I want to save for the very end of this segment. So before we get to that, I do want to know, as we build to WrestleMania, we are a week out. Are there any of these A-list feuds that are supposed to be on this WrestleMania card that don't have your interest? Because in my mind, I'm not interested in any of these women's matches. I'm not interested in the Becky Lynch-Bianca Belair match. I feel like Becky is playing a character that she is either A, uncomfortable with, or B, just isn't a true representation of who she is. And I can't stand Charlotte, and Ronda Rousey does not necessarily make me want to root for her. I know the fans pop for her super hard, but I could care less about Ronda Rousey. So, like, I'm not interested in any of the women's championship matches. And, I mean, after that, it's just kind of, I'll be honest with you, the one thing I'm interested in this Brock Lesnar-Roman Reigns feud. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in this Kevin Owens Stone Cold thing, and I'm interested in whatever we're going to get with Seth Rollins. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like a lot of this card, I don't need 2 nights for it. You know, a lot of this card I could get in probably an hour and a half.
Okay, I'll look at it like this, as to say, reword it to say, it's not that I'm not interested, but it's not must see. Like, if you miss the women's match, okay, whatever's happened. I mean, there's gonna be great moments. Obviously, it's WrestleMania. They're gonna transcend the card. Obviously, I think Bianca Belair is gonna shine. Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Ronda. I think Ronda's gonna have to do some work to carry the weight. You know, I think what you're saying is a general lack of, like, oh my God, I have to see the payoff. The one is going to be obviously Seth Rollins, and the other is going to be Kevin Owens, and how is that going to play out with Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm interested mildly in obviously Randy Orton and what's going to happen in that tag team match, but the Street Profits don't feel big enough just yet. Even though they've been on the card, they've been champions, they don't feel big enough. It feels like the match that would be money drawing would be the Usos against, you know, RK Bro. That would be money. That would be something that would be interesting. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I would have liked, you know, just to kind of keep it, to have that champion versus champion feel with Finn Balor taking on, Ricochet. That'd be cool. Something unique, you know. But yeah, WrestleMania is set up in a way now where we just got to see it. I don't think it's must see though. I don't think that if you miss it, and with the nature of how the internet is, that you're going to be like, wow. But that's up to them to shatter our low expectations and over-deliver. But we'll see how the matches go. We'll see how the 2 nights set up. And it's not going away anytime soon, so we got to come to embrace it, that WWE WrestleMania is going to be stupendously large over 2 nights. So let's see. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The one that I guess that I'm not interested in the most is Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair, because it just seems like, okay, it's forced, 2 names. And Ronda is not established as a wrestler yet. She's more established as, oh, this is Ronda Rousey in WWE. Because when you take time off, it kills your run. So we'll see if she can, and this push hasn't been spectacular. So we'll see how this plays out, but you're absolutely right. It just has a feel of like, okay, tell us what you got, because we're sitting here tapping our thumbs going, what's going on here?
All right, before we get into our review of AEW, and we start talking about what AEW gave us this week, I do have a question for you, because this was announced late Friday night. What does it say about WWE that the U.S. champ Finn Balor will be in the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial on SmackDown next week, along with the Intercontinental champ Ricochet being in a triple threat match against Los Lotharios on SmackDown next week? Neither one of these guys, these are championships that these guys carry. Neither one of these guys have a spot on the WrestleMania card. We've got 2 nights of WrestleMania, and yet 2 of your belts, especially that IC belt, that was a pretty prestigious belt.
Oh, hell no, bro.
And the U.S. Championship belt was a pretty prestigious belt in WCW, yet neither one of these champions can get on the main card. They will be on SmackDown on Friday night.
See, sometimes you get so busy that you just naturally assume IC belt, US champ. I mean, put them together. What the hell's going on here? We just made a match. How are they not putting this together? What the hell is going on here? I can't believe you just told me that. It's like you took my coffee and dumped five ice cubes in it. Come on, man. You don't have these guys in a match? I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I thought we were going to get Finn Balor versus Damian Priest for the U.S. Championship at WrestleMania. Whether it be the opening match, or it be the pre-show, or it be something in the middle where, you know how we talk about pacing of cards all the time, where things get really, really high, and then all of a sudden you gotta give a match just to kind of bring it down a little bit before you build it back up to something else. It could have been in one of those little low spots to kind of bring it back down before you build it back up. Same thing with Ricochet. Ricochet's fantastic in the ring, and I'm so happy that he's getting a shot as the Intercontinental Champ. It doesn't look like it's going to be long-lived, though, as he's going into a triple threat match on Smackdown. It shows you what Vince feels about, one, these championships. He doesn't care about them. And two, the guys who are wearing the belt, Finn Balor and Ricochet, because he doesn't care about those guys either. And it's really, really frustrating because I think we're both huge fans of Finn Balor. We both think Ricochet is fantastic in the ring. But it's just frustrating to know that these guys won't be on the WrestleMania card.
And some of the biggest memories are people winning the Intercontinental Championship for the first time. I mean, they just played it wrong. They should have just had, potentially Ricochet win it at WrestleMania and just delay everything a month. Did you really need anything that you saw with Ricochet over the last month? No. So it's just disappointing at the highest level. So I'm disappointed, and it's just, hopefully it doesn't end up playing that way. It's disappointing.
For sure. But let's transition over into AEW, because I thought what we got on Dynamite this week was absolutely fantastic. I think this was the first Dynamite show that wasn't a 10-5 show. And what I mean by that, it wasn't 10 pounds of shit trying to get crammed into a 5-pound bag. And I thought it was great. I thought this was one of the first sustainable types of shows that AEW can give. It feels like for the last couple of weeks, AEW has thrown everything, including the kitchen sink and the refrigerator, at us, whether it be with brand new signings, whether it be with tons of storylines just intertwining and weaving all over the place. It's really felt like after a Dynamite show, you really need a few moments to kind of decompress and try to take it all in, because there's been so much that you have been inundated with. This was the first show in a very long time that I felt was paced out well, and you got a moment to really enjoy everything. The one negative I would say about Dynamite this week, it really felt like the women got condensed down into about 15 minutes of a 2-hour show, and it was like boom, 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 boom for the women, and then we were like moving on. So whether it's not so much that they don't believe in the women, or maybe that ratings show that the ratings dip a little bit when the women are on the screen, it really felt like the women weren't giving enough time, and I think Thunder Rosa specifically deserved a little bit more time. But overall, I thought Dynamite was a fantastic show with the way it was paced out. Do you think that Dynamite can sustain itself by giving us more shows like this, or does it have to be more of that circus atmosphere where you're getting a big name surprise here, you're getting this storyline that runs into this storyline that runs into this storyline, and next thing you know, we've got 7 storylines that we got in an hour and a half on top of a monster surprise on top of a bloody finish?
I thought it was great. It really had a feel of nostalgia too when it was the Varsity Blondes taking on Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley with William Regal. I just got the nostalgia feel of old school with all the generational talent that was there. William Regal. I mean, you kick off the show with CM Punk against Dax, which I thought was a stellar match and really interesting to see. You're absolutely right. Dynamite was awesome. And look, there's some look. I think what you recognize is sometimes it's not also the matches, but the pacing. I mean, you have great wrestling and then MJF. And then you have great wrestling when you have a show with Jay Lethal taking on Adam Cole, that's a fun show. And it was really good. And I think that what people are recognizing is some of the work that has been done to elevate the likes of a Daniel Garcia, John Silver, Alex Reynolds. working with a Chris Jericho. You're starting to see the elevation and the work that's been done to elevate, and that's been the biggest difference between the failed WCW and AEW. There's a nice mix of, boom, MJF, CM Punk are there, Jon Moxley's there, but they're not dominating the show. The opportunities are there for others to get over, and I think it's great that you've seen now Chris Jericho take a couple of the wrestlers and say, let's start making some stars, which is based on experience. And it's great. It's an alternative. And when you look at pro wrestling versus sports entertainment, you get both. So I'm moving away from like the feud. WWE is corporate. AEW is a little more rugged. We get the blessing of having both. And I enjoyed Dynamite a lot this week. And the blessing now with DVR is you can pause a show that you're not happy with, get back into it later throughout the week. So it's an opportunity to really watch wrestling and an opportunity to watch and get your fix at different times throughout the week. But yeah, Dynamite was awesome, bro. It was great. And I think you're right. Maybe this week was just a little bit of a lesser of an emphasis on the women.
Yeah, and again, it was more for me, a lot of it has to do with pacing. I thought the pacing was absolutely fantastic. I do want to talk about Chris Jericho because we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, and again, I apologize for that. But last week we had Chris Jericho basically bring into the ring the Chris Jericho Appreciation Society. And you got a moment to see Daniel Garcia speak. And now Chris Jericho and all the guys in this group are going by entertainers. I'll be honest with you, I never got the Daniel Garcia character. I didn't get Daniel Garcia as a wrestler. I thought he was okay in the ring, but I never believed in him. I never bought into him. I always thought 2.0 or whatever they were going by in AEW, that's how disinterested I was in them. I just thought they were kind of annoying. But you put them with Chris Jericho, and it's amazing how Chris Jericho can kind of make guys, because for the first time since Daniel Garcia has been part of AEW, when he cut that promo, when he took that microphone out of Chris Jericho's hand last week and cut a promo, I kind of got it. I seen it. I was like, okay, this is why he's here. It's starting to make a little bit of sense to me, where it hasn't made sense to me for the year plus that he's been there. I just haven't got it. Like, I've never gotten his character. And the guys from 2.0, yeah, they're still kind of annoying to me, and I don't necessarily know what they really bring. I think they can work well in the ring, and the one chubby guy can cut a decent promo, but I still am trying to figure those guys out. But with Chris Jericho, it gives him a little bit more of a nod of credibility. And like I said, I was really surprised at how Daniel Garcia came across last week. And now you fast forward to this week, you've got these guys in a main event. These guys are main eventing Dynamite, which is obviously AEW's big show. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really see a whole lot of in-ring difference from what they wrestled like before to what they're wrestling like now. But again, I get Daniel Garcia, and I think a lot of that has to do with Chris Jericho. I think Chris Jericho has, one, helped build Sami Guevara. Sami Guevara is a big deal. He's a huge deal in AEW. We both liked Santana and Ortiz. We both thought they were absolutely fantastic. But I am interested to see what he does with a guy like Daniel Garcia, because Daniel Garcia, I feel like, is the Sami Guevara of that group. And I think Chris Jericho bringing you inside and letting you know about how the guys, how the dudes from 2.0 came over, and how that backstory with Daniel Garcia, we all kind of knew it. Like, especially if you've ever been interested in Daniel Garcia and Wikipedia'd it, because I've done that, you kind of knew it. I didn't realize Chris Jericho donated to him to help his basically with his medical bills. I didn't know that. I thought that was great that they did that. What do you think about Chris Jericho basically bringing these guys together? And does Daniel Garcia connect to you a little bit more now than he did before, or has he always kind of connected and resonated with you?
But just on a higher level, it just means more. When you're working with Chris Jericho, it just means look at me, pay attention, because it means you're important. And that's the cachet, is that, if Chris Jericho sees something in you, then you must be worth something. And that's the value of working 30 years in the business, is that Chris Jericho is not just picking Sami Guevara and Santana and Ortiz and Daniel Garcia to be there to just stand by him to make him look worse. He knows that there's potential to have an opportunity, and that's what he's tasked with doing, is seeing something, being willing to go and stick his neck out, and in a reverse way, because Triple H is doing it overtly, like, okay, we're going to have this McMansion all over the country in the Performance Center, and let's pump out content. Whereas Chris Jericho is doing it on a much low-key scale where it's like, okay, you get an opportunity, you're on TV, you're in a faction with me, you're in matches with me, I'll cut promos on you, I tell everybody what I think of you, and now you start building stars. So 2 different ways of doing it, but very much valuable to the business. And it's definitely deposits in the long-term future of AEW to start the process of branding and creating stars. And you're on the verge of one megastar in MJF. If he can just take that one more step forward, whatever that may be, you have a little bit of everything. Established vets, superstars, young guns on the rise, Hall of Fame caliber talent, and you have everything you need. Now you just got to continue to build the influx of young talent, and Chris Jericho is at the head of that.
Yeah, look, I think, like you said, Chris Jericho is kind of like that stamp of approval. It's amazing how he can help make guys. And it's amazing that he knows he can help make guys, and he goes out there and he absolutely does it. But what did you think of FTR this week? I thought what we got out of FTR tells you that we've got a little bit of a change coming. With this match against CM Punk, you had basically FTR wrestling as faces, dare I say. There was no interference from the outside. You had what was a really sound technical wrestling match, nothing dirty. And in the end, we go to the back, we get a promo with Tony Schiavone, and it sounded like it was the most face promo you've ever heard from 2 of the baddest guys on the planet who are wrestlers. Do we have the early signs of FTR turning face? And if so, what does this mean for the Pinnacle?
Ooh, what does this mean for the Pinnacle? Great. One last tag team. Got to find one. I think it's great. I think Dax has the potential to be great. I love both wrestlers. I think they both have the opportunity to really take steps forward and to handle their business. And I think that maybe you're looking at the balance in the ratio of heels to faces, and you need a couple more on that side. But I think everyone in our group chat is liking the tease regarding the best in the world and things like that ahead of the Owen Classic. So it's going to be fun times, and I think that's the best. That's all you can do is plant the seeds of intrigue and reel the people in. And Adam the Jock has bit on the on FTR's push, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of Bret Hart might join these guys, and you've seen a little bit of you've seen a sharpshooter done in the ring. So it's going to be interesting. I think they are that next storyline that we really need to pay attention to, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun to watch going forward. I thought on Rampage, Swerve Scott had a fantastic match against Ricky Starks. Thought that was really, really good. I want to know, because this is going to kind of transition into this final question before we move out of AEW. What's your current favorite faction in AEW? So, like I said, you had Ricky Starks and you had Swerve Scott have a fantastic match. Hobbs got involved. So you've got everything going on with basically Taz's collection of guys. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up getting a bit of a tag team with Keith Lee and Swerve Scott, or Swerve Strickland as he's going by now. But what is your current faction in AEW that has you most interested and that you're really digging the most?
Yeah, there are a lot of them, huh?
There are.
I definitely was a fan of the Inner Circle. They broke up now. It's really interesting in regards to how everything's going on. Now, it's unusual, but it's, a situation with, I'm really intrigued by really the top. I think that the future of Moxley and Danielson led by Regal, it has the potential for some high-end stuff. So, and especially with the notion of right now, they said, we're going to pick young talent to work and elevate. Who's that going to be? And as that progresses, I think that there's opportunities for that to be really, really, really fascinating. But for a B, It's annoying, but I like Dan Lambert. I like his intentional shit talking. And it's weird, but you're just like, okay, this guy's a fucking clown. But you want to listen to him, and he's like, this guy isn't intentionally coming over from that world, but fits in naturally. And Paige Van Zant, I think, has some untapped potential that at least that you're intrigued by. So it's obviously the A is Moxley and Danielson, and B is whatever Dan Lambert's talking his shit. It's interesting, at least to pay attention to.
What did you make of that back and forth with Ty Conti and Sami Guevara and Dan Lambert, where they're like, well, we know we've been living rent free in your mind, but now we're living rent free in your mouth. And then I don't know if you see the picture. Ty Conti came out and released a picture of basically her and Sami Guevara being naked in a bed. They're kind of fuzzed out, but the belt is bright in front of you, so you can kind of see what they were. You can't see a whole lot, but you can see what was going on. What did you make of that? I thought that was a great mic drop.
I don't need to see my wrestlers spooning their ladies. I mean, they're going a little over. They're going a little over the top there with it. But hey, it is what it is. Sami Guevara's doing his thing. It's obviously getting the approval of management. So do your thing, Chicken Wing. But I don't need to be seeing that.
I think for me, my favorite faction probably would have to be, man, that's such a tough question because there are so many good factions, but I love what's going on with the Pinnacle right now, and I do feel like we are on the precipice of them breaking up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with FTR if FTR moves in a different direction. You've already had Wardlow leave, and basically it is now Shawn Spears and MJF on one side, you've got FTR on another, and at the very, very top you've got Wardlow. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how these guys end up moving forward. I'm also curious if we're ever going to get in LAX in AEW. You have Santana and Ortiz leaving. I'm wondering if we get the rest of LAX in AEW, and I think if we do, I think it'll be fantastic. I think it'll be really, really interesting. Something new that we wanted to do on this show, we'll be doing this every week. What was the show of the week? If you had roughly 2 to 3 hours to watch one show, what one show would it be? Would it be Monday Night Raw? Would it be NXT 2.0? Would it be Dynamite? Would it be Smackdown? Would it be Rampage? Or would it be Impact? What is your one show that you have to watch this week? Which one was it for you?
Yeah, you got to watch Dynamite. It was amazing. It was perfect. It was set up well, and an opportunity to see a lot of young stars of AEW's future, followed by Raw. Now, I know it wasn't optimal, but there were a lot of good things that you could check out. So for sure, A1, sit down, watch Dynamite this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dynamite as well. Dynamite, when we were talking pre-show, I was blown away, and the job that they did on Dynamite was absolutely fantastic. I didn't think Rampage was necessarily worth the hour that I gave it. SmackDown for sure wasn't worth the hour I gave it. If you want to watch Rampage, go watch the final, I think, 20 minutes to watch the Swerve Strickland, Ricky Starks match. That was absolutely great. NXT, I still don't get it. I won't get it. I don't know. Monday Night Raw, like you said, probably second place this week, but give it to Dynamite. That's where we're going to go for the show of the week. You want some news and notes?
All right, cuz, hit me at this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
All right, WWE reportedly has big plans for Omos at WrestleMania 38 in the form of a high-profile singles match. Now, we both agree Omos can't really wrestle his way out of a paper bag, much less cut a promo. But according to Fightful Select, WWE has a match between Omos and Bobby Lashley on the books at WrestleMania. Now, Lashley has not competed in a match since the Elimination Chamber last month, although he didn't actually see any action in the contest as WWE ran an injury angle to have him drop out of the WWE Championship and give that to Brock Lesnar. Omos has been winning weekly squash matches on Raw recently after beating Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz in a handicap match on Monday. He claimed he would dominate anyone who steps to him, even at WrestleMania. Now, Lashley versus Omos would be a true clash of the Titans, and if Lashley can beat Omos at WrestleMania, it would mark Omos' first singles loss by pin or submission in WWE. I don't know how good this match will be. I find it to be kind of sad for Bobby Lashley to go from being a WWE champion to basically getting knocked out of a match that he didn't even participate in, to losing his championship, to now wrestling this guy. It's not great for Bobby Lashley, if you ask me. Now, WWE reportedly has no plans to change the 2-day WrestleMania format that it has used for the past 3 years. According to Dave Meltzer on Sunday night's Main Event podcast, people within WWE gave the impression that WrestleMania will continue to be a 2-night affair moving forward. Meltzer noted that while the 2-night format didn't yield immediate sellouts for WrestleMania 38, it isn't necessarily a big concern for WWE since AT&T Stadium is a huge venue and that is difficult to sell out regardless. It was also pointed out by Meltzer that people within WWE felt that a 7-hour WrestleMania over the course of one day was more exhausting than spreading it out over 2 days. Also, if you don't know, WWE sells you one ticket for one night and sells you another ticket for another night. So it's a way for them to double cash in. It's kind of interesting that they love this because it's like 2 times the profit for one event. Reports are WWE has a lot of interest in another AEW star. And again, this is not MJF. Andrew Zarian is saying WWE has big interest in Ethan Page. Page currently re-signed with AEW, but WWE is looking to possibly add him to their roster when his new contract expires. Now, some sad news and some big news. On Friday morning on ESPN's Stephen A's World, Triple H announced that he is retired from in-ring action, stating that due to the heart procedure he had, he now has a defibrillator in his heart. And it sounds like Triple H was going to have something planned at WrestleMania 38 this year, but obviously that has been put aside. Triple H basically said that when he feels like he wants to do something, like he doesn't have to be in the ring anymore. He has done everything he's wanted to do, but when he feels the need or he feels like he can contribute in some way, all he has to do is go to Vince, and they were planning on something for WrestleMania 38, and him getting sick basically derailed a lot of things. Now, Triple H is slowly working back into his executive role. It is one of those things where he is taking it very lightly, and he is moving at basically a pace that he's allowed to move at. Something else that was noted for WrestleMania 38, and things had to change because of Scott Hall's death. It sounded like the NWO was going to be part of WrestleMania 38 this year to help promote the 2K video game. Because of Scott Hall's death, those plans have also been scrapped. So it'll be interesting to see if they do something NWO-wise sans Scott Hall. But it'll be interesting to kind of see what takes place there. Also, WWE and 2K, it sounds like they're going to re-up their partnership after this year's WWE 2K video game has done extremely well. In the past, 2K has had a ton of issues with this video game. But this year, it looks like it's actually a really, really good game. So that's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with any of our wrestling takes, hit us up. Let us know. Man, cuz next week we're going to have a massive preview for WrestleMania. It's going to be good. It's going to be fun. I look forward to it. Great recap of wrestling this week. Anywhere that you listen and find your favorite podcast, just type in 3 words, Detroit Sports Podcast, and you can find our daily content dedicated to all things Detroit sports and the world of professional wrestling. I can't wait. Big things ahead for all the companies. You got Impact, you got AEW, WWE is headed toward their main event, especially the night after WrestleMania is always wild. And cuz, look, you remember too, with NXT, WrestleMania was a weekend thing, so don't put it past them. If they ever get it bigger and they go global, hell, make it a 3-night event. It was with NXT. You never know with WWE. They never cease to amaze. I did think the last one that was a 1-night event was a little bit long. We talked about it on this podcast, but 2 nights is just way too much. You gotta have that healthy balance, but we'll see how it progresses in the future with this mega WrestleMania. Podcasting time is now coming to a close. This week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast is now over.